Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic, calling back another episode. This is episode 284. We're coming along, chugging along. So we are coming off of this full moon in Leo, which happened exactly on Sunday. I hope everyone had a good reflection, like I talked about on last week's episode, seeing the dichotomy between both your ego as well as where you need to humble yourself, right? Ego is very important, and there's a lot of amazing things about it, but sometimes we gotta humble ourselves, and then sometimes we also gotta up that confidence. We gotta up that ego a little bit. So if you missed that episode, definitely check out last week's episode. This week it feels like the wheels just went running, though, especially coming off of a fire full moon. It was like all week was just boom, boom, boom. I don't know if I'm caught up yet, but I'm getting a little bit closer. So now this week's energy is doing one final look back cycle, or however you want to word it, for my mutable energy. I know I said we're starting to move past that, but mutable energy, stay with me, because these next 6 weeks are really accumulating one final cycle, you could say. We have a strong month beginning this Friday, tomorrow, of Pisces energy that is going to close the eclipse cycle, and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. As I write this out, I'm like, it's really been a lot of energy for mutable signs over the last 3 years. With each new, it was like a new chapter, bringing a brand new play or musical. You know, every chapter was a brand new play or musical is what I mean. And so my mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, having the eclipses, while Saturn was there, as well as Neptune's last few years in Pisces. Mutable signs often do well with like changing the script, you could say. We're mutable, we're changing. So oftentimes the life story isn't always, set in stone. So we do welcome change a little bit, maybe more than Pisces do. I would say that out of all the mutables, I think Pisces handle it the least amount. But I'm looking back, I'm like, oh my God, there has been a lot of shit that has happened. Mutable signs, I know that you are really reflecting on that and seeing it. So you made it out through the final side of all the bullshit. But like I said, there's about another 6 weeks of accumulating and closing out this cycle. Yesterday, February 3rd, was that yesterday or 2 days ago? Uranus stationed direct in Taurus, one last time in Taurus. April 25th, Uranus will ingress back into Gemini, where it was last summer for a few months, and never return to Taurus. And anybody who's listening to this lifetime, it will return to Taurus in 2102. I'm like, wow, okay, right? Is that correct? I'm like, that's crazy. I also find that it's so fast. I don't know, for some reason I find it so fascinating about the outer planets when they shift signs, that it's going to be, for most of us, unless someone who's born as a baby right now, the last time we will ever experience them in that sign again. So again, not to look at that as a collective, I don't know, I like the finality of that. Like, okay, so whatever things that this outer planet brought up, it's pretty much no more. Thursday the 5th, that's today, Mercury in Aquarius will square Uranus in Taurus. Friday, February 6th, Mercury will ingress into Pisces at 5:48 p.m. tomorrow. So we are beginning, like I said, the accumulation of some of this mutable energy that's been intense for the last few years. On Sunday, February 8th, Venus will square Uranus in her ruling sign of Taurus, and then she will follow Mercury and ingress into Pisces on Tuesday the 10th at 5:18 a.m. So let's talk again a little bit. Let's retrack and talk about the full moon that came in last weekend. As you guys know, I had my son's birthday party. Relatively speaking, it actually went really well for having 6 12-year-old boys for about 30 hours and lots of moving parts. Now, when I was planning his birthday party, I had looked the weekend before, which I'm happy I did it. I didn't end up planning that day because there was all this, all the snow and stuff, but I was like, oh, it's a full moon, and this squares he has a ton of Aquarius placements. I'm like, ooh, that's squaring that. However, I realized that Mars, having that in Aquarius was actually trining his Mars in Libra and his moon. So I thought I had to rethink it, and I thought, you know what? I actually think that this full moon with his personal chart trining, and especially a lot about trining the Mars, his Mars, natal Mars, current Mars, looking at the rest of astrology, I was like, I actually think this is going to go well. And it really did, like I said. So Saturday night was the sleepover, lots of moving parts, but there was a few little tiffs that all got worked out well. But I want to give a great example, though, with the sleepover, my kids' friends between cardinal, fixed, and mutable, because it was very evident among them. And also I want to tell you guys how this showed up for me, especially when it shows up little ways. So the full moon was happening in my 6th opposite my 12th. So to give you a short description, it can be something hidden in the 12th house, hidden enemies. The ice was my hidden enemy. Opposite the 6th house, which could be accidents, and not in accidents that don't, aren't really the best ones. So first night, Saturday night, we took all the kids to a jump house. I had to go out to the car. I came back and there was one tiny piece of ice, literally the size of a shoe, out front of the door. I hit it, slipped, bang, hit my knee. My knee is all bruised. I power through things. I don't whine. I power through it. But it's been tough. Listen to that. I'm like, the tiny, tiny, tiny piece of ice. I somehow didn't see it. Somehow just got it and just totally wiped down. Came down on my right knee. And it's all bruised and everything. It was tough. So there's a few other ways, but I don't want to talk about all of that. But just like that is one of the ways that this full moon showed up for me. I don't have any planets in Aquarius. I have nothing in Leo, so it wasn't super major for me like it was for people with those placements. However, it did show up in that way. I didn't see this hidden ice that totally wiped me out and took me out. I am okay. I am fine. But that's a good example sometimes, especially when we have big transits, but they're happening in houses where we have no planets in. It will still show up, but it may not be so major. I always fall too. It's always like around something happening to that 6th house though. And I'm pretty good. 6th house trines my Mercury. So I always get back up, but I'm a little clumsy. I think it's because I'm 6 foot tall. So let's talk about the cardinal placements with the friends, and then we'll jump into the rest of astrology. So my 2 boys are fixed placements. They have 5 planets in Aquarius, and the other one has 5 planets in Taurus. And 2 of the friends there were cardinal placements, a Capricorn and a Libra, and the other 2 friends were Gemini and Pisces. So the next morning, we're trying to figure out car placements. We're taking 2 cars because we were taking them to the water park in Atlantic City. My boys, okay, they share friends because they're so close in age. So my 2 boys that morning were not budging about who they wanted. Of course, one wanted a certain group in the car. The other one wanted a certain group, the other group in the car. And they were being so stubborn about their ways. I've had to pull them out separately. I'm like, just be easy with your friends. They're like, no. And Remington, and like I said about a Taurus, I had to pull him out, about them giving in their own way. And I had to say to him last week, this isn't your birthday party. Like, you got to give in. And he's like, I don't care. I'm not giving in. This is what I want. So there's that cardinal energy. That's that fixed energy. Like, this is what I want, and I am not budging. All right. And that's a very natural energy to fixed placements. Now, the 2 cardinal signs, who I've also known for a very long time, I've known all my kids' friends since they were wee little ones. They're kind of like all my other children. And the 2 cardinal ones, for a few hours earlier when all this sort of began, the talk of where is everyone going to sit, they both sort of put up a little bit of a fight, the cardinal signs, 2 of the friends, but then they gave in. Then they were like, okay, you know what? Never mind. We're fine. We'll go anywhere. And that's a very cardinal energy. Cardinal comes on strong, is like powerful, but then when it's met with a few pushback, it bounces back and says, okay, I'm over it. I'm tired. I'm not doing it anymore. I don't care. But that fixed energy will just keep going until they get what they want. Now, the mutable signs, the Gemini and Pisces, those 2 friends literally both were like, it's okay, we'll sit anywhere. We don't care, we'll sit anywhere. They had no opinion of where they sat. When the heat of the argument got brought up, they both were like, we're fine, we'll go anywhere, right? So that, and the Cardinals were a little pissed off, they didn't get it. And then my kids were the stubborn ones fighting over it. So just in that example, I was thinking about it afterwards because it literally had 2 of each of those, the cardinal, the fixed, and the mutable, which all of the signs are one of those. I was like, that's a great example. So remember that. Mutable, in the moment, they will be fine with anything. Cardinal, they may not be fine with it, but eventually they will give in. And the fixed, their asses aren't giving in. They're like, nope, nope, nope. So take that in because that is such a huge part to the energy of all the different signs, as well as the energy when we have the certain signs or energy showing up in the collective. That's going to be how it shows up. So let's jump into my fixed placements, who are going to feel a lot this week and next week, as well as my mutable placements. So with Mercury and Venus squaring Uranus one last time in the fixed signs, one thing that came to my mind is fixing one last mistake that seemed like it wasn't fixable. A behavior that you made that wasn't the best choice. And especially over these last few years, maybe in the last year, a behavior that you made, like I said, it wasn't your best choice. And you thought you could just move past it. And you didn't know if you could move past it. I'm sorry. You didn't think you could. You thought it wasn't fixable. Well, this is going to be a very important time to rectify it. And you are thrown suddenly as well. This can be another way it showed up, into the change you wished you would see in your life, the change that you prayed for within yourself. And now it's go time. So put up or shut up. Okay. My fixed placements, like I said, this is going to be a time where you can fix something that you thought was not fixable or not repairable. And it may come on suddenly. So if that happens, go for it. But B, the shit that you prayed for is happening, and fixed signs, you guys might be scared of that change, because you guys do get scared of that change. You're like, this is how it is. You remember, you probably prayed for this. Remember, you wished for this, and now it is go time. Okay. So put up or shut up. This is an energy, okay, as well for my fixed signs, that you can also move past one last friction within yourself, within a connection with another, within a work connection, one last friction within your intimacy and mental blocks surrounding that intimacy energy. And again, this is going to happen through being pushed out of your comfort zone. If you feel the friction this week, make sure you push yourself through it. Friction and tension is built up energy. It's like, so this is going to be one final push to complete the cycle of a surprised understanding. So the understanding, when you push yourself through that through that friction, when you're no longer scared of that friction, you are going to be surprised with the understanding that you gain. And it might not be what you thought it was going to be, because with Uranus there, it's like a little bit of a twist, like, ooh, I didn't expect that coming. But trust and believe, okay? Fight through the friction, fight through the tension, get that shit out of you. Mercury ingresses into Pisces tomorrow for 1 week, with Saturn there, okay? And then Saturn enters Aries next Friday the 13th. That's interesting. Saturn enters Aries, because I feel like Aries is very Friday the 13th energy. So, okay, so Saturn enters that. So this is closing the cycle of self-awareness for my mutable placements, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. Mercury is said, now, not to scare you guys, and Mercury will be retrograding in the sign of Pisces, which we had a retrograde last year in Pisces as well for Mercury. Mercury is said to not work at its best in the sign of Pisces. Often, the very literal mental sign gets confused when it's in Pisces. It gets lost in the mind, gets lost in fantasy, doesn't necessarily know how to execute what it wants, can't make logical sense of its emotions. Some of the hardships of Mercury in Pisces, those are some of those, and it has trouble. The biggest thing is really making sense of the emotions, making sense of the mind. But since we are beginning this Mercury in Pisces with one last week left of Saturn in Pisces, it's bringing you one last reality check of Saturn in Pisces for an almost 3-year transit, which is crazy. Saturn, think back to, what day is it? Did I say that it ingresses? Yeah, on Friday the 13th. I can't believe that. Friday the 13th. Think back, March 7th of 2023 until now. This is where, especially by mutable placements, you guys are going to gain some awareness there. Where and what has been your greatest self-awareness, especially around revealing truths, releasing fantasies, seeing the reality of a situation? And if you're not quite sure, look up where Pisces is in your birth chart. See if you have any planets there, if you have any squares to any planets or trines to any planets. Say, you can Google it. It will say, hey, okay, it's the 7th house. I have a 7th house Pisces. So that's a house of relationship, marriage, deep friendships that last a long time, as well as seeing your reflection through another business partnership. It is the other, but the other that is very tied to our own soul. So look into each one and you'll get a greater idea into the awareness of how Saturn and Pisces showed up, and sort of what maybe will be the last little bit of this transit's awareness that you need. So this next week is going to bring a lot of reflection, some confusion, because Mercury, like I said, in Pisces is confused. That comes along with the clarity, though. There is going to be clarity when Saturn leaves Pisces next week. However, I want to say, I know it sounds silly or an oxymoron to say confusion can come from clarity, But there sometimes is more confusion with clarity. Not forever, but it's like, oh shit, okay, now I have that clarity. What do I do now? When you see something that you can't unsee anymore, but not sure what to do with this newfound clarity, again, that brings confusion. So there's going to be a little bit of that happening. The confusion may take over a little bit. Then on February 26th of March, what am I talking about? February 26th of February, Mercury will station retrograde in the sign of Pisces. Saturn will be out of there. Saturn will be ready to take action. So that's when you will know what direction you need to go from the clarity, okay? So there's going to be clarity. You may be confused about where to go with that clarity, but then when Mercury stations direct, you will know what action you need to take with the clarity you gained, and there will be no more confusion for now. There's always a little bit of confusion. That's how we shift and always change our perspectives, spoken like a mercurial person here. So, like I said, Mercury last year began its first retrograde in the sign of Aries and then retrograded back into the sign of Pisces, where it finished out that retrograde. So Mercury stations direct on, I already said that, on the 26th. What time? When does Mercury station direct? Hold on. Mercury stations direct. What am I saying? Oh, retrograde. I'm sorry. I'm confusing everyone right now. Mercury stations retrograde on the 20th, and then on the 26th, and then on March 20th, Mercury stations direct. So I'm sorry, you're gonna have a few weeks of that confusion, but then the clarity will come. So Mercury last year, like I said, it finished out in Pisces, so there might be some residual things that come back from last March to you that you need to take a second look around. And there's going to be one final lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 3rd, while Mercury is still there in the opposition in Pisces. And then, so you will know that what to do with this. Again, you'll know what to do with this newfound clarity when Mercury stations direct. And it will station direct in Pisces at 8 degrees. So Mercury will be at 8 degrees next week on the 12th and will be conjunct the North Node. So my mutable placements, really pay attention to what shows up for you next week, Tuesday through Friday, especially Thursday, though, which is the exact 12th, because this retrograde will rewind back to that degree and station direct. So whatever wonky stuff, whatever Mercury retrograde stuff that may show up next week, okay, it's important to remember that it will get resolved on the 12th when it rewinds back. I'm sorry. It will, when on the 20th of March, when it goes the whole way back, it will resolve itself. Look, I'm already getting my dates all confused. I told you, every time Mercury retrogrades or enters Pisces, I feel like I can be all over the place with what I'm saying. So I'm hoping this makes sense. And I'm like, great. You know, it always frustrates me with my episodes when Mercury's retrograde or Mercury's in Pisces. Now, we're going to tie into this a little bit more. Venus ingresses into Pisces on the 10th. Next week. Venus will be there too next week when, like I said, when we hit that 8 degrees of Mercury. Venus works at her best, at her strongest when she's in Pisces. So I love that we are having a well-placed Venus in Pisces at the same time as Mercury is retrograding in one of its hardest places. So we're getting lots of supportive, positive energy from Venus during this Mercury retrograde, which, again, I am loving that. So especially when it comes to Venus-ruled things, love, romance, self-love, creative projects, our children. If a past lover, a romance, a mental connection, a friend comes back around during this time, definitely give it a go or a second look, because we have a supportive Venus right there. Some, the same goes with friendships, with a creative project. This energy may come back through with Mercury retrograde. And I know, again, often we should be avoiding things, unless it's a second look. We should avoid our exes, it's often said, or we should avoid other things. However, this particular Mercury retrograde has Venus there with her at the very best. So that's what I'm saying. This is a time, if people come back around, to go to it. Gain some awareness, talk to them, go out with them, a friendship, because there is something good there. There is a second look that you need to take, and something in your life deserves that second look. this is also a time to jumpstart your creative energy, go back to doing something that makes you happy again in the creative world. You know, something maybe you stopped it last year, Mercury retrograde, and then in Pisces, and you couldn't get jump started, but this year you might feel more creatively ready to go, or again, it comes back around with for a second look and you have a different mindset for it. But only if it comes easy. That's the number one thing too. If it's not coming easy, even having a supportive Venus there, then Mercury is telling you to stay away. So that's a rule of thumb, I think, for anything in life, is that when there's a lot of resistance to something happening, I often take that as a rule, is like, okay, the universe is telling me that this is not the path. This is not what I'm set up to do right now. Maybe in the future I will. So remember that as a rule of thumb. If the person, place, or thing comes back around, but it feels like there's still a lot of resistance, it's not coming easy, then don't go for it. Yes, Mercury often has resistance while it's in retrograde and doesn't come easy, but I'm telling you, with a supportive Venus, it will if it's meant to be. So remember that when things come back full circle over this next month, 6 weeks, if there is too much resistance, the universe is saying, stay away. Stay the fuck away. Now, this is the end of the episode, and I'll be back next week with some more transits we're talking about. We have, beginning though on the 17th, the solar eclipse in Aquarius. Soon we're beginning that eclipses between Aquarius and Leos. We're going to finish out the 3rd of March, the last lunar eclipse in Virgo, and then there'll be one more solar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, and then we are done. So again, guys, this is a lot of tying up loose ends in your life and moving forward for my mutable placements. With that being said, I love you all. Have an amazing week. You're amazing. Goodbye.